At 9:14 in the morning, a single missile leaves a mobile launcher positioned 800 kilometers inside Iranian territory. Lieutenant Commander Daniel Cross, sitting in the Abraham Lincoln's electronic warfare suite, watches the launch signature appear on his passive sensors and feels something he has never felt in 11 years of naval service. He feels afraid, not because of the speed, not because of the warhead, because of what he knows about the brain inside that missile. And because he wrote a 52-page classified paper about exactly this moment 14 months ago, and nobody read it. To understand why Daniel Cross is afraid, you need to understand what Iran just fired. This is not a legacy system. This is not anything the Abraham Lincoln's crew has encountered in this war or any other. The Abimadi is Iran's most advanced anti-ship cruise missile. Long-range, sea-skimming with a range of 1,000 kilometers, a dual seeker combining active radar and infrared guidance, and a warhead large enough to mission-kill a carrier. Iran's own defense minister called it a weapon that can completely destroy enemy ships. He called it a game-changer. He was not wrong about the warhead. He was not wrong about the range. What he did not say publicly is the thing that makes the Abimadi different from every other missile in Iran's arsenal. It learns. The Abimadi carries an onboard artificial intelligence processing system that does something no previous anti-ship missile has ever done. Throughout its entire flight, it monitors every electronic signal in its environment, every jamming frequency the target ship transmits, every radar emission, every intercept attempt, every defensive action the crew takes, and it processes that information in real time, adapting its flight path, its guidance frequency, and its terminal approach geometry to defeat whatever it is learning about its target's defenses. It is not just flying toward the Abraham Lincoln. It is studying the Abraham Lincoln. Every second it is in the air, it is becoming harder to stop. Cross had written about this. He had calculated the adaptation rate of the AI system based on publicly available Iranian technical documents and signals intelligence reports he had compiled over 14 months. He had described exactly what would happen to each layer of the Abraham Lincoln's defensive systems as the Abimadi learned its way through them. He submitted the paper to the Electronic Warfare Doctrine Office in August of the previous year. He came back 3 months later with a note that it had been logged and forwarded to the appropriate technical review committee. He never heard from the committee. At 9:14 and 33 seconds, the Abimadi's launch signature registered on the Abraham Lincoln's SPY-6 radar. The contact climbed steeply, then leveled off at 30 meters above the sea surface and accelerated to 900 kilometers per hour on a direct bearing toward the strike group. Time to impact, 9 minutes and 20 seconds. In the Combat Information Center, Tactical Action Officer Lieutenant Commander Hassan Oei had the contact classified and the engagement sequence initiated in under 15 seconds. The Aegis system began building an intercept solution. 2 SM-6 interceptors launched from USS Bulkley at 9:15 and 11 seconds. Climbing toward the intercept point the fire control computer had calculated based on the Abimadi's current trajectory. Cross was on the circuit to the Combat Information Center at 9:15 and 19 seconds. The SM-6 are not going to work. The missile is already collecting our radar emissions. By the time they reach the intercept point, the Abimadi will have identified the Aegis fire control frequency and moved. I need you to listen to me right now. Oei told him to stand by. Cross watched his display and said nothing. He had said what he needed to say. Now he watched the Abimadi do exactly what his paper said it would do. At 9:16 and 44 seconds, the Abimadi executed a maneuver that the Aegis fire control computer had not predicted and had no historical precedent for in its engagement library. A flat, horizontal turn at sea-skimming altitude. Not a ballistic correction. Not a terminal dive. A smooth banking turn that took the missile 340 meters to the left of its previous course at 30 meters above the water, briefly dropping below the radar horizon in the sea clutter before reacquiring from a completely new angle. The fire control solution the Aegis system had been building for 91 seconds became instantly invalid. The first SM-6 detonated in empty air. The second followed its assigned intercept point into nothing. The Abimadi continued inbound. It had been in the air for 2 minutes and 14 seconds. It had already identified the Aegis fire control radar's primary frequency, mapped the SM-6 intercept geometry, and calculated an evasive profile that defeated both simultaneously. It was still learning. Cross looked at his display. The missile had done in 2 minutes and 14 seconds exactly what he had predicted it would do in Chapter 3 of his paper. He had also predicted what it would do next. He opened a new window on his secondary display and began building something. Not a jamming solution, not an intercept geometry, something nobody in the Combat Information Center knew he was building, because nobody in the Combat Information Center had read his paper. At 9:17 and 3 seconds, the Abraham Lincoln's own electronic warfare suite activated and began transmitting a broadband jamming signal across the Abimati's known guidance frequencies. A wall of electronic noise designed to overwhelm the missile's radar seeker and break its lock on the carrier. The Abimati flew through the jamming signal for 11 seconds. Then it changed frequency, not randomly, specifically. It identified the jamming pattern, calculated the gap between the jamming signal's sweep cycles, and shifted its guidance frequency to transmit through that gap. The jamming became ineffective in 11 seconds. Cross had predicted 9 seconds in his paper. The missile was slightly slower than he expected. He noted the difference. At 9:18 and 41 seconds, OAE picked up the circuit to Cross's position. "Nothing is working. What do you know about this missile that we don't?" Cross told him. He told him about the AI. He told him about the adaptation rate. He told him that every jamming frequency they had tried, every intercept geometry the Aegis system had generated, every defensive maneuver the Abraham Lincoln had attempted, all of it was being recorded by the missile's onboard AI and transmitted in real time on a specific encrypted data link frequency back to the Iranian command post that had fired it. He told him that Iran was not just trying to hit the Abraham Lincoln. Iran was trying to learn how the Abraham Lincoln fights. The missile was a probe, a data collection platform with a warhead attached. Even if it missed, even if it was destroyed, every second it had been in the air had already transmitted information that would make the next Abimati harder to stop. Unless someone killed the data link. OAE was quiet for 2 seconds. Then he said, "Can you kill it?" Cross said, "I've been building the solution since 9:15. Here is what Cross had been doing. While the Combat Information Center ran through conventional options one by one, he had been focused on something else entirely. The Abimati's AI data transmission link, the signal it was using to send its accumulated intelligence back to the Iranian command post, operated on a frequency that was not the same as its guidance frequency. It was a separate encrypted channel, narrowband, transmitting in short bursts every 14 seconds. It was not a jamming target. It was not an intercept variable. It was not in any engagement doctrine the Abraham Lincoln carried. Cross had identified it at 9:15 and 44 seconds, 33 seconds after the missile launched, because he had spent 14 months looking for exactly that frequency in every Iranian technical document he could access. He had found a reference to it in a signals intelligence report from 2024 that described a partial intercept of an Abimati test transmission during an Iranian exercise in the Gulf of Oman. The frequency was partially redacted in the report. Cross had spent 6 weeks reconstructing the redacted portion from the surrounding technical context. He had the frequency. He had the encryption pattern. He had been listening to the missile's data transmissions for 4 minutes and 11 seconds. And he had built a complete map of what it was sending home. Now he was going to send something back. Not a jamming signal. Not a disruption. A replacement. A spoof data transmission on the exact frequency the Abimati used to communicate with the Iranian command post, carrying false information in the missile's own encrypted format, replacing the real data the missile was transmitting with data that Cross had been constructing for the last 4 minutes. False jamming frequencies, ones that didn't exist, ones that would tell the Iranian command post that the Abraham Lincoln was defending itself with systems it didn't have, using frequencies it had never transmitted. False intercept geometries telling the command post that the SM-6 had missed because of a specific Aegis radar limitation that wasn't real. False evasive maneuver patterns describing a carrier that moved in ways the Abraham Lincoln had never moved and never would. Everything Iran was learning about how the Abraham Lincoln fights, Cross was replacing it with a detailed, technically consistent, completely fabricated picture of a ship that didn't exist. He began transmitting at 9:19 and 8 seconds. The spoof signal went out on the Abimati's data link frequency at the exact burst interval the missile used every 14 seconds, carrying Cross's false data in the missile's own encryption. The Iranian command post received the first false transmission at 9:19 and 22 seconds and had no way of knowing it was false. The encryption matched. The burst timing matched. The technical format matched. The data it contained was internally consistent and plausible. Iran was receiving a detailed real-time picture of how the Abraham Lincoln was defending itself against the Abimati. Every word of it was wrong. The missile continued inbound, 3 minutes and 44 seconds to impact. The Phalanx close-in weapon system on the Abraham Lincoln's bow activated at 9:20 and 11 seconds as the Abimati entered its inner defense envelope, a sea-skimming contact that had already defeated SM-6 and broadband jamming. The Phalanx faced the same problem it faces against every adaptive threat: a fire control solution that the target could invalidate faster than the gun could correct. The Abimati detected the Phalanx fire control radar at 9:20 and 19 seconds. It began analyzing it. Cross watched the analysis happening on his display. The missile's AI processing the Phalanx emissions, calculating the gun's traverse rate, building a terminal corkscrew maneuver designed to exceed the weapon system's tracking capability. He had described this exact maneuver in Chapter 7 of his paper. The Phalanx fired at 9:20 and 31 seconds. For 1,500 rounds per minute, tracking a contact executing a corkscrew maneuver at 30 meters altitude and 900 kilometers per hour. The rounds reached the intercept point and found the Abimati 3 meters outside the dispersion pattern. The missile flew through the burst undamaged and continued its terminal approach. 2 minutes and 11 seconds to impact. Cross had been waiting for this moment since 9:15. Not because every conventional defense had failed, because every conventional defense failing was the condition he needed. The condition under which the Abimati's AI would shift from its learning phase into its terminal attack phase, locking its guidance system onto the Abraham Lincoln's last known position and committing to its final approach geometry. In the terminal attack phase, the missile stops adapting, commits. It has learned everything it believes it needs to know, and it executes the attack profile its AI has calculated as optimal based on everything it has observed. The learning stops and the attack begins, which means the false data Cross had been feeding it for the last 4 minutes and 19 seconds was now locked inside the missile's guidance calculation as ground truth. At 9:21 and 44 seconds, with 1 minute and 38 seconds to impact, Cross transmitted one final spoof data burst on the Abimati's frequency. Not to the missile, to the Iranian command post, a position update for the Abraham Lincoln, 400 meters to the left of where the carrier actually was. A correction that the missile's terminal guidance system, now in committed attack mode, would receive and integrate as a final targeting update in the last seconds of its approach. The missile received the position update at 9:21 and 51 seconds and integrated it into its terminal guidance solution. At 9:22 and 58 seconds, the Abimati impacted the Arabian Sea 400 meters off the Abraham Lincoln's port bow. The warhead detonated on water impact. The explosion sent a column of white water 80 feet into the air and a pressure wave across the carrier's port side that rattled every fitting on the ship and threw 2 crew members off their feet in a passageway 3 decks below the flight deck. Nothing touched the hull. In the Combat Information Center, OA stood completely still for approximately 4 seconds. Then he picked up the circuit to Cross's position. How much of what it sent home was real? None of it, Cross said. From the first transmission, everything Iran received about how we fight, every frequency, every geometry, every maneuver, I replaced it. All of it. Oei didn't respond to that for a moment. Then he asked the only question that remained. Where did it come from? Cross had the answer. He had been triangulating the Abimati's launch position from its data transmission signal for the entire 9 minutes and 4 seconds of the missile's flight. Not from the missile's guidance emissions, from the data link. The narrowband burst transmitter the missile used to send its intelligence home operated from a fixed frequency originating from a fixed point. The launcher that had fired it, 800 kilometers inside Iranian territory, still transmitting on the same frequency to receive the data the missile was sending back. Cross had that position accurate to within 22 meters. He transmitted the coordinates to the Combat Information Center at 9:23 and 11 seconds, 13 seconds after the Abumati hit the water. Rear Admiral James Carver authorized the strike at 9:24. 2 BGM-109 Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from the Abraham Lincoln's vertical launch cells. Flight time to target, 47 minutes and 20 seconds. The mobile launcher had begun relocating the moment the Abumati impacted. Iranian doctrine for mobile missile launchers is precise. Move immediately after firing. Reach the secondary position before the enemy can respond. The launcher crew had planned their extraction around the assumption that 800 kilometers of Iranian territory gave them time. It gave them 47 minutes. The first Tomahawk arrived at 10:11 and 31 seconds. The second impacted 9 seconds later. The launcher, the crew, and the Iranian command post that had spent 9 minutes receiving detailed intelligence about how the Abraham Lincoln defends itself, intelligence that was false in every critical detail, ceased to exist at 10:11 and 40 seconds. In the electronic warfare suite, Lieutenant Commander Daniel Cross wrote his engagement log in 3 sentences. Iran built a missile with artificial intelligence so it could spend 9 minutes learning how we fight. We spent those same 9 minutes teaching it the wrong things. The report it sent home will make the next Abumati easier to defeat, not harder. Then he opened a new document and began updating his paper. Iran fired its most capable missile at USS Abraham Lincoln, a weapon purpose-built to learn, adapt, and defeat every layer of American naval defense in real time. It failed not because America's defenses stopped it. It failed because the one officer who had spent 14 months understanding how the missile thinks spent 9 minutes thinking faster than it did. America's response was already in the air before the water column had finished falling. And the lesson Iran took home from the Arabian Sea that morning, if it ever reads the data its missile sent back, is the one it least wanted to learn. The intelligence it collected for 9 minutes was never its own.